So many problems with software. Okay, let us start. Last class we had discussed this example, and I had discussed about the eigenfunction property of the uh, LTI system, and we had looked at this example and seen how individually each frequency component is affected by the magnitude response and the phase response of the LTI system. So if you recollect whatever I had told last time, this was a stable system because A is going from -1 to +1. So this is the single pole, and that is going from -1 to +1. So if it is a real pole and it is staying on the real axis between -1 and +1, that is all poles are inside the unit circle, then it is a stable system. And if you impose the condition of causality, then the ROC includes the unit circle. If the ROC includes the unit circle, then the Fourier transform exists. So DTFT can be calculated. So you can now see, can you see the cursor, everyone? Can you see my cursor?
Yes, sir.
So this is the eigenfunction property of an LTI system. So when you feed e power j omega n, so a complex sinusoid here, in the general case, it can be z to the power n, where z is a complex number. So either a complex exponential or a complex sinusoid with magnitude unity here. So that is fed as an input, and you get output also as a scaled and phase offset, uh, same frequency sinusoid. So yn is equal to this into e power j omega n. So if you simplify this difference equation by substituting y of n and x of n here, then you get this equation. This can be simplified, and you can obtain the formula for h e of j omega. So if you analyze this formula, because this is a complex number, this formula is a complex number. It is a polynomial, and it's a rational polynomial. So this is a rational function, and it, it is complex in nature. So you'll have to analyze its magnitude and phase separately. So last time we had analyzed all this, that what would be the magnitude of the denominator and what would the phase response. So we have done all this. Where was it? Yeah. So this was the magnitude response and this was the phase response. So we plotted them, and we saw that the magnitude response is this blue curve, okay? And the phase response is this black curve. So at a particular frequency, omega naught equal to 2 pi by 20 radians per sample. So you can see that the magnitude response has a value 0.58. This is a normalized magnitude response. So the maximum value of the gain is 1. So at a particular frequency, the gain is 0.58. So you fed a sinusoid into the system. So the input sinusoid is shown here. It has magnitude 1 in blue. Can you all see the blue sinusoid? Everyone? And the output sinusoid is this black sinusoid. So the output sinusoid maximum value is 0.58. Okay? Because it is scaled by He j omega mod, where He j omega mod at omega naught is equal to 0.58. Okay? So the output, sorry, one second. So the output sinusoid is again uh, a sinusoidal function with the same frequency, but its magnitude has been scaled by 0.58. And if you look at the phase function uh, is getting offset. by a particular number, and that number is again given by this by the phase function here. So that is 0.1 pi at omega naught equal to 2 pi by 20. So if you divide this by omega naught, you will get 2.55 samples. So this is the delay in the phase that the input sinusoid undergoes as it passes through the LTI system. So we will understand today like what is a distortion free system, what causes distortion when a signal is passed through filter. This is something like a filter magnitude response. So your filter can be a channel for communication systems. So channel can be a wireless channel. It can be something like the atmosphere for radio waves. So what happens when radio waves pass through the channel? How they get distorted? Uh, what happens when you do modulation? Those things are like uh, it's a part of the study of communication systems. So we will not go deep into it, but we will just understand what does a channel or a transmission system or a filter do to the input sinusoid. Okay. So it causes change in the magnitude. So if you see, the blue curve is now becoming the black curve. It is sinusoid with the same frequency. That is important. Frequency doesn't get disturbed, but its magnitude is disturbed and its phase is disturbed. Okay, is this clear to everyone? I hope this is visible. This is the explanation. Can you all see this slide?
Yes, sir.
So frequencies close to omega equal to 0, they pass without too much attenuation. But frequencies close to the higher frequency range, that is pi, omega equal to pi, are severely attenuated. So this is a low pass filter. So, and the way it is designed, the peak of the magnitude response becomes narrower as A approaches 1 because you have denominator as 1 minus A. So HEG omega max by HEG omega min is 1 plus A by 1 minus A. So if this approaches 1, then it tends towards infinity. It becomes steeper and steeper as you approach the DC frequency. Okay. So I hope this is clear. So now let us move into today's part. So we talk about phase functions. So we talk about phase functions. So phase functions have an ambiguity associated with it because of this particular equation. So if you see here, the angle uh, it turns out to be the same if you add a 2n pi value to the original angle. So the original phase, if it is disturbed by 2n pi, it appears the same way. So this is the intrinsic ambiguity of the phase. So there is something called phase unwrapping, and so the continuous phase can take values from 0 to infinity or minus infinity to plus infinity, whereas the you do something called phase wrapping. That means, or phase unwrapping you do. That means you uh, open up the phase. So you can imagine that there is a cylinder, and on the cylinder you have the phase wrapped from minus pi to plus pi, And when you open up the cylinder, so you have like something like a paper wrapped on that cylinder, and as you unwrap the paper, the continuous phase function is seen. Are you able to understand the analogy which I'm giving? So imagine that there is a cylinder and you have wrapped some paper on that cylinder, and you have got some values on the cylinder, okay, written some values, or you have drawn some graph on that. So if you just take one sheet of paper, that is which gets folded onto itself on the cylinder only once, okay. You can imagine that there is a cylinder and you have taken a piece of paper and you have wrapped it around that cylinder so that the cylinder is totally covered by that paper, okay, only one time. Can you understand what I'm saying, all of you? Are you able to hear me clearly? Yeah. So you have just one sheet of paper and you have completely wrapped that cylinder, and you have drawn some phase function on that cylinder, some graph you have plotted on that cylinder. So that graph goes from minus pi to plus pi. Okay. Now you imagine that the same graph is repeating from say minus pi to minus 2 pi, or from plus pi to plus 2 pi, okay, or plus 3 pi, rather plus pi to plus 3 pi, and plus minus pi to minus 3 pi. So same graph is repeating, and you have wrapped two sheets or three sheets of paper around that cylinder. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? So if you open up all those sheets, you will get repeated functions, repeated graphs. That is what I have written here. So uh, generally, the principal value of the phase is given between minus pi to plus pi, and whatever happens beyond plus pi and minus pi, that is a repetition of this principal value of the phase function. And so it will appear as discontinuities or jumps of 2n pi radians. Okay, the phase is getting added with 2n pi. So from pi to 3 pi, the phase is getting added. There will be a discontinuity, and the same graph will repeat. Hmm. So, so if you unwrap the paper, you will see that the same plot is coming, but there is a discontinuity at pi and minus pi, and that discontinuity value is 2n pi. So that is called phase unwrapping. So generally, when we want to take integrals or derivatives, we will assume continuous phase, that is phase going from minus infinity to plus infinity, and the principal value of the phase is between minus pi to plus pi, and after pi to another 2 pi, that is 3 pi, you will have the same function repeating, but with a jump discontinuity of 2n pi at pi, and 2n pi at minus pi. Okay, fine. So this is the idea of phase unwrapping. Generally, we will stick to only this range, minus pi to plus pi. Clear? So you can imagine that there is this phase function which is given between minus pi to plus pi. So if you want to see what happens beyond plus pi to 2 pi, or rather 3 pi, there will be a jump discontinuity of 3 pi here. There will be a discontinuity in the graph. So it will start with 6 pi added here, or rather 3 pi added here. 3 pi will be added here. So 0 plus 3 pi, it will start again from there. Again, it will be a function like this. Okay. Can you see my cursor? Again, same function will come here. And here it will be like again a jump discontinuity, and below this. So it will be again a curve with the same nature, but with a jump discontinuity. Okay, so this is the idea of continuous and principal phase functions. So this range is called the principal value of the phase. And if you have a continuous function with jump discontinuities, then that is denoted by psi omega. We'll look at that uh, symbol in just a short while. So phase function has an ambiguity that you should understand. So now let us talk about steady state and transient response. So you're exciting a filter that can be a FIR filter. If you excite it by a complex sinusoid, then how does it behave? We have said in the beginning when I introduced the eigenfunction property that the eigenfunction property holds if the input sequence x of n is a complex exponential sequence that exists over the entire interval n from minus infinity to plus infinity. If you look at my slides, this is the condition. If I can show you the previous slides, I had mentioned that you see here all n. Can you see my cursor?
Yes, sir.
So we are assuming that e power j omega n goes from minus infinity to plus infinity. Oh, that is not strictly valid for real world signals. So suppose we consider a complex exponential starting at time n equal to 0. That is, we multiply u of n with e power j omega n. Okay. So every input starts at a finite time. So suppose a switch is pressed at time t equal to 0 and you observe e power j omega n. And suppose there is a causal system, Hn is equal to 0 for n less than 0. Then how would the convolution come? So if Hn is equal to 0 for n less than 0, the convolution starts with 0 and goes up to n because you're observing at n. So it goes up to n. So y of n can be calculated with this convolution. So you put x of n as e power j omega n u of n. So it will come like this, x power n minus k, e to the power j omega n minus k. You can write it as a product of two terms, e power j omega n and e power minus j omega k. So you see there is a splitting of this term. So this part is the Fourier transform because it goes from 0 to infinity. So you can write k equal to 0 to n by changing the limits as k equal to 0 to infinity and k equal to n plus 1 to infinity. So you're subtracting this part. So when you subtract this part from this, you will be left with summation k equal to 0 to n. Clear? So you will get here the dTft of h of k, which is h e to the power j omega n into e to the power j omega n. That is the steady state response. So this is going from 0 to infinity. So this is the steady state response. And here you get what is called the transient response. So e to the power j omega n is fed into this mathematical function, which represents the transient response because it is going from n plus 1 to infinity. Okay. So we have now written down the convolution as a sum of two terms, the transient response and the steady state response. The transient response will decay out and you will be finally left with only the steady state response, this guy. So the eigenfunction property will hold only for steady state condition. Is this clear? Who is coming now, Baba? Okay. So the term y subscript TRN is known as the transient response of the LTI system. So if the system is stable, then you have this condition. That is, if you take the modulus on both the sides, you will get the absolute value of the transient response as a finite number. So the transient response becomes progressively smaller as n tends to infinity, because fewer and smaller samples of the impulse response are included in the summation. So the transient response slowly decays out. For example, an FIR system with h of n equal to 0 for n greater than m. This is an FIR system. So it has m taps, so m coefficients. So if you assume that it is a causal system, then it is 0 for n negative, and it is positive only for, or it is finite only for n greater than 0, and again it decays down to 0 for greater than m. So it is only finite for a finite duration, and therefore you have an FIR system, and its transient response will vanish for n greater than m. So you will be left with only the steady state response. So for large values of n, the transient response of a stable system will decay towards 0, leaving only the steady state response. So limit n tends to infinity, y of n will be the steady state eigenfunction property based value. So the eigenfunction property holds after the transient response has diminished. That is the idea. And in most signal processing applications, we are only interested in the steady state response of the system. Okay, is this clear? Okay, so energy or power gain. So from the Parseval's theorem, we have the energy of the output sequence. So this is the output sequence y of n, and its energy can be calculated using the eigenfunction property with the Parseval's theorem like this. Ah. So if you see here, this particular term He of j omega mod square, it plays a role in how the LTI system transfers energy or power from the input signal to the output signal. So the output signal like will have a modified amount of power or energy as compared to the input signal based upon this particular guy. So at some frequencies, the power may be attenuated. At some frequencies, it may be preserved or it may be increased. So we will refer to this term He of j omega mod square as the energy or power gain of the system. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
So this is the idea of energy or power gain. So because our LTI systems are supposed to be filters, so they will modify the power in the input signal to create the output signal. So generally, we express the gain of the filter or the LTI system using logarithms. Okay, so this has some advantages. So we'll see that, and the unit is generally kept as decibels. So the gain in dB of a filter having a magnitude response Hej omega mod is defined as equal to 10 log 10 mod of Hej omega square. So it is actually 20 log 10 mod of Hej omega. This is the way it is defined. So this symbol triangle in equal to means defined as equal to. Okay. So if you're talking about gain as being 0, then it means that mod of Hej omega is equal to 1. And so the 0 dB gain corresponds to a value of mod of Hej omega equal to 1. And if Hej omega mod is doubled, then we say that the gain increases by 6 decibels roughly. So you would have done Bode plots, everyone? You would have plotted Bode plots, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you would have understood, like, you would have come across Bode plots where you said you have not gone through any control course. So in signals and networks, you plotted Bode plots. Where did you do this Bode plot analysis? In which subject? Can you remember which subject you did?
Sir, actually, I did in control system. So
Now you must be a master's student, right?
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Now what about the UG guys?
Sir, in signals and networks.
There only you did Bode plots. Apart from that, no other course, right? Okay. So 6 decibels per doubling of the magnitude of the filter. So if mod of Hh omega is less than 1, then instead of like an amplification, you have attenuation of the signal. And then in this case, the gain becomes negative. Okay. So if you see our example, here Hej omega mod is equal to 1 max. Can you all see my cursor? The max value is 1.
Yes.
So the gain of the filter is 0. And as it decreases, then we say that the gain is negative or it attenuates the signal. So at this particular frequency, it is attenuating the input signal. Okay. So this is the idea. If mod of Hej omega is less than 1, instead of gain, we have attenuation. So mod of Hej omega in decibels will be negative. Okay. So we were talking about distortion-free LTI systems or channels, and what happens when signals actually pass through LTI systems which are not distortion-free. So what do you mean by a distortion-free channel or LTI system, and how distortion can happen? So this is one of the most important parts of this chapter. The other important parts will come later. So everyone in this class should definitely understand after today what is a distortion free channel or an LTI system or a distortion free filter. Okay. So this is a most important part of the course. So all UG students, I expect you to pay attention because I don't know whether you have been taught this in your signals and networks course, but here you should definitely learn this. So an LTI system changes the input signal X of n into an output signal Y of n. And the nature of this change can be realized by looking at the Hej omega response. So the relative magnitudes and phases of the frequency components in an input signal is modified by the frequency response Hej omega of the LTI system. And these changes can be either good or it may not be good, may not be desirable. So if it is not desirable, then the signal is subject to distortion. So how does an LTI system which preserves the input signal, what is the mathematical condition that we should impose on that? So for distortion-less response, the system has to make sure that the shape of the input signal is preserved. Okay, so this is the main idea, that the output signal should look similar to the input signal's shape. That means it can get disturbed in magnitude or phase, but the shape of the pulse or the shape of the input that you are sending through the LTI system, that should be preserved. So the output signal should resemble the input signal in shape. So if that is the criteria, then the most simple way by which that can happen is that the output signal y of n is a scaled or a delayed version of the input signal. Okay, and generally the delay will be n minus nd, where nd is greater than 0. Okay, if nd is negative, then it means that you are getting a signal when nothing existed. Suppose xn starts at time t equal to 0 and nd is negative, then you will get n plus say 1 when the signal has not been sent. So you will be violating the principle of causality. So that to avoid that, it is written as x of n minus nd. So that is a delay that you can see that the input signal is delayed and it is changed in amplitude, but nothing else distorts the input signal. Only a delay and a scaling in amplitude. So this is the form. So where G and ND are constants, if you take the Fourier transform of both sides, you get like this. So now this part is the HEJ omega. Okay. So those who want to, they can make a note of this, because this is one of the most important parts in this chapter. Fine. Shall I move ahead?
Yes, sir.
So you can get the frequency response of the LTI system by dividing y e to the power j omega by x e to the power j omega. You get this particular function, and this is a complex number, and it can be split in the polar form, can be written in the polar form. So He j omega mod is equal to G, which is the gain, and the phase response or the phase function is given as minus omega into Nd. So for an LTI system to have a distortionless response, the magnitude response must be a constant. So G is a constant, and the phase response must be linear function of omega with a slope minus Nd. Please be careful. On all the vivas that I have attended till now, every student has drawn the phase response as a line passing through origin with a positive slope, which is absolutely wrong. Okay, positive slope means you are talking about non-causal system. So this phase response phi of omega versus omega is a line passing through the origin. Okay, because it is minus omega into Nd, there is no constant term here. So it is a line passing through the origin, y equal to mx plus c, c is equal to 0. So y is equal to mx, m is equal to minus Nd. The slope is minus Nd. Please get this clear, drilled into your heads, everyone. Slope is minus Nd. The line will be having a slope of 135 degrees, not 45 degrees. Okay. If you do this mistake after attending this course, it's an absolute shame. And you are all shameless people. Okay, if you make that mistake in the comprehensive Viva, and I will ask this question to draw the phase response of a distortion-free LTI system. And if you draw that with plus 45 degree, then you are absolutely shameless. So ND is the delay of the output with respect to the input. If you make ND negative, then it is a non-causal system, and we cannot have non-causal systems in practice. So ND will be positive, slope will be minus ND. So phase response should not only be a linear function of frequency, but it should also pass to the origin, omega equal to 0 with a slope of 135 degrees. So it is having a negative slope, minus ND. Is this clear to everyone? Am I audible? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I know you will make the same mistake. You will absolutely draw this plot with 45 degrees angle. I will take a bet. Okay. I'll take a bet that everyone who comes to the comprehensive Viva, particularly UG fellows, you will draw a 45-degree angle slope. Everyone. Okay. I'm taking a bet. You prove me wrong when you come for the comprehensive Viva. Okay, chalo. So this is about distortion-less response. HE of j omega, when is it supposed to denote a distortion-free LTI system? When these two conditions are satisfied. So there are two things here. One is the magnitude response and the other is the phase response. So there can be two types of distortion when an input signal is passed through a channel. So there can be a magnitude distortion and there can be phase distortion. Two types of distortion. So we say that a system introduces magnitude distortion when HE j omega mod is not equal to G. That means when the magnitude response is not a flat curve, not a flat line. So in this, the system will distort the input signal by changing the correct proportion of the input frequency components. So if you imagine that the input signal, whatever you are feeding in, is made up of Fourier coefficients. Okay. It can be discrete time Fourier series coefficients or it can be continuous time Fourier series coefficients. So there are so many Fourier components that you have, or frequency components that you have. And if you have magnitude distortion, then the proportion of those frequency components that get mixed up in that frequency, in that continuous time Fourier series sum is getting disturbed. So the signal will not correctly come at the output. The shape of the signal will get changed. So systems without magnitude distortion, that is systems having mod of HE j omega equal to G, where G is a constant. It is a DC line, okay, parallel to the x-axis. So systems without magnitude distortion, that is systems which satisfy that satisfy the above equation, are known as all pass systems because they are passing all the frequencies. That is why they are known as all pass systems. So all pass systems have a flat magnitude response and their characteristics are completely determined by the phase response. So all pass systems are mainly, it is given that the magnitude distortion doesn't happen because the all pass systems, they pass all the frequencies in the same proportion and their magnitude response is a constant. So only distortion that they can cause is through phase distortion. Okay, so we should study the phase response for all pass systems. So this is more tricky because what happens when there is phase distortion? This part is slightly difficult to understand. Let us see. So if the phase response is not a linear function of frequency, then what happens? Okay. So if the phase function is a linear function of frequency, that is, if the phase response is plotted as a line passing through the origin with a slope of 135 or tan 135, okay, then you have um, a, a phase response which corresponds to a distortion free system. But if that phase response is not a line passing through origin with a slope of minus nd, then it is not, it introduces phase distortion or delay distortion. So the phase response is also giving you the phase shift. That is what we have seen in that example, that from the phase response you have calculated out how much the output sinusoid got phase offset with respect to the input sinusoid. So the phase response gives the phase shift in radians experienced by each sinusoidal component of the input signal. So you can now rewrite the phase using this idea. You can now rewrite the expression of the eigenfunction property like this: for a particular input x. Okay, so here you have ax mod of hej omega cos of omega n plus phi x, where phi x is the original phase of the input sinusoid. So we have a sinusoid with the frequency omega, amplitude ax, and phase offset phi x. When it passes through a LTI system having a magnitude response mod of heg omega and a phase response angle of heg omega, then this is what it will happen. This is what will happen to this input sinusoid, the cosine, and the output signal will be a cosine scaled in magnitude by ax into mod of heg omega and phase offset additionally by angle of heg omega. So we can now write this particular part by taking out omega and putting a bracket. So you see here, this will come as n plus phi x by omega plus angle heg omega by omega. So this part has a particular name. Okay. Can you see my cursor? Angle heg omega by omega. This term
Yes.
is having a name. So the quantity angle heg omega by omega shows the time shift in number of sampling intervals. Okay, this is phase in radians. That is, if you divide that by omega, so you see here omega into n, omega into t plus phi. So omega into t is radians. Omega is radians per sample. So omega is radians per sample into sample gives you radians. Phase is in radians. Okay. So this, if you divide the phase in radians by omega, you get samples. So it shows the time shift in number of sampling intervals or samples experienced by each sinusoidal component of the input signal. So we have a name, it is called a phase delay for that term. So it is defined, phase delay is defined as tau subscript PD omega. Phase delay is denoted as the negative of phase response divided by omega. So this paragraph is important, and whatever I've underlined in red is important. Okay. So for distortionless transmission, it is not enough that the system amplifies or attenuates all frequency components equally. That means only hej omega mod equal to g is not sufficient. You should have something more. All these frequency components must also undergo an identical time delay. That means this particular factor has to be constant. How can this factor be constant? There is a division by omega. So this demands that for a constant phase delay, a phase shift proportional to frequency should happen. Phase shift, angle heg omega, proportional to frequency should happen. then only you will get constant phase delay. If this whole thing has to be constant, then the phase response, like for every frequency component, has to be constant. So the phase shift has to be proportional to frequency. So non-linear phase responses can lead to severe shape alterations. This is the most important part of today's lecture, and I think like just one more slide and then I should stop. So for distortion-free systems, they should be all-pass systems. That is, mod of Hg omega, it should be equal to G, or a constant flat DC line. Magnitude response should be constant, and the phase response should be such that the phase shift should be proportional to frequency. So if you see, the phase response is a line passing through the origin, which is having an angle of minus ND, a slope of minus ND. Okay, it is not a DC line. It is not a DC line. So it shows that the phase response is proportional to frequency. So the phase shift for each frequency will be different, such that the phase delay or the phase offset for different sinusoids or different frequencies will be a constant. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So you see this equation, this guy has to be a constant. This term has to be constant. That is the test for linear phase response. Non-linear phase responses will be having variable term here. It will not be constant. For different frequencies, this number will be different for non-linear phase response. Phase shift should not be constant. It should be proportional to frequency. Please make a note of this. Whatever I have underlined in red. I am taking all the trouble for you guys to get the correct concepts. If you get the wrong concepts, you will not understand DSP. DSP is full of concepts. Everywhere there is a pitfall. So many places where the interviewer can catch you. Okay, so be careful. So the last slide for today, this is called a group delay. So the group delay, okay, I'll not introduce this today. I need to talk about derivative with respect to frequency of the continuous phase function psi omega. I'll keep it for the next, for tomorrow. So I'll stop with the previous slide here. I don't have the time to discuss that. So group delay, I will talk tomorrow. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.